Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead. Guys, on Porch Time today, we're over here at the cabin. It's been raining continuously. Not the kind of rain that puts like water in the pond or anything. It's just been a slow, steady, drizzling rain for about 2 days now. It's been cool, breezy. I mean, it's just one of them things. It's just been what you call miserable weather. But we welcome it because we've had such a long period of time of nothing but heat and drought here. So we're very, very, very much appreciative of this type of rain. It's really soaking into the ground good. Now, it's not putting any water in the pond, but that's okay right now because we really need it. I've got grass planted and stuff like this is you know, it needs it, and we're thankful that we're getting it. So, but today, guys, I want to talk about, and I'm in the cabin because it's just raining outside. It's winds blowing like 20 miles an hour. This tropical system out here in the Gulf just doesn't know what it wants to do. It's just stalled out sitting there, you know. So we're just going to continue to get this rain for days on end. It looks like, at least the rest of this week anyway. They're saying rain. But I want to talk about a chain of events. Now, I want us to, this just hit me like I guess you say like a ton of bricks whenever I was thinking about this. How that some people in life can't figure out how some people are able to do things and other people are not able to do things. And many times, it's just simply a chain of events. Now, when I say chain of events, I'm talking about like some people, you know, are overcomers, some are not. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you for being that way. It doesn't mean that you've made any kind of bad decisions. Sometimes bad things just happen to good people. And they set into motion a chain of events that leads that person down a road that they just don't seem to be able to get out of. You know, I mean, I have a brother that's disabled. He had a house trailer fall across his back and crushed his back. And because of that, he became a paraplegic. He's paralyzed from the waist down. Been that way now for, I don't know, 30 years, 25, 30 years maybe. And now he's, you know, his body's been, they've done so many surgeries on him trying to do this and do that, and pressure sores, and now his kidneys is failing, and he's gone on to dialysis. I mean, and it's just been a chain of events for him through his life. He's tired, you know, and it was not his fault. It's just something that happened. What you call being in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know. But, you know, me personally, when I first moved here where I'm at, land was $750 an acre, if you can believe that. That was just like, that's unreal. And I was like, oh yeah, so you know, there was 260 acres here, and I said, well, I'll just buy 10, and I told them, I said, every year I'll buy some land from you if that's okay, and they're like, yeah, that's no problem. 2 older ladies I was dealing with, and I bought the first 10 acres, paid cash for it. The next year I bought 5 more acres, paid for that, and then the third year I went back, and they told me, said, well, you know, we got to have $950 an acre, and I'm like, well, okay, you know. So I bought a few more acres, and then the next thing I know, I asked them about buying like 20 more acres, and they said, well, we're going to have, we're not going to sell it to you in pieces like this anymore. We want to just sell it all to you. And I was like, well, I don't want to buy all of it, you know. But looking back, if I'd have just went ahead and just spent the money and bought it, which I could have, guys, now I set into motion a chain of events that I have no control over. Now I have neighbors everywhere around me. If I'd have bought it whenever I could have bought it, I would be still living in a very peaceful place out here, and I wouldn't have to worry about obnoxious people everywhere. You know, that's, you know, I've got good neighbors. Now don't get me wrong, I got a lot of good neighbors, but I've also got some bad ones. But I mean, I set into motion a chain of events. God gave me the opportunity to purchase it all, But, you know, with me being a young guy, I was like, oh, you know, land's been for sale forever. I mean, nobody's going to buy this. It's been for sale out here for a long period of time, and no one's bought it. You know, and I never anticipated that the two elderly ladies that I bought the land from, that their kids would decide to just go ahead and turn it over to a realtor and have him break it up. Yeah, that just didn't cross my mind. And then when they did turn it over to a realtor, I bought what I could afford to buy, but the price went from $750 and $900 an acre to $1,800 an acre to $2,300 an acre. And I was at that point, I was like, there's no way I could buy any large, you know, sums of it. And then I went to buy the 20 that's behind me, and you know, a guy was in there in another room buying it, and I didn't know it, and neither one of us knew each other were there, and he ended up purchasing it before I was able to get it that day. But you know, that set into motion a chain of events in my life. You know, I went through a divorce. I had everything paid off at 40 years old. I was completely out of debt. Went through a divorce, went back several $100,000 in debt because I had to start all over again. And some of you people who've been through that know what I'm talking about. Divorce can set into motion a chain of events in a person's life that many times, and it's the sad part, many times people never crawl out of. They're never able to get back where they were, because most people are, what happens is you have two incomes coming in, and you're able to afford a particular place, and you go through a divorce, and it sets into motion this chain of events where one of your income is gone and the other one's income can't continue to live where you are, and you can't sell it, and you end up having to file bankruptcy or just losing it completely and having to go rent or get a Section 8 place or rent something somewhere. And it sets into motion a chain of events. Your credit has been destroyed, and you're sitting there going, I'll never get out of this. And a lot of people sadly never do. I mean, I was fortunate. I was, as the old expression goes, I was hell-bent on not staying where I was. I mean, I was living in a mobile home and building a new home, and several $100,000 deep in debt, and it took me 7 years. I had to just grit my teeth and say, you know what? I'm not buying Cokes. I'm not buying snacks. I'm not going out to eat. I'm not going to movies. I'm not doing this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying home. When I get my paycheck, I'm just going to take what I got to have to pay what debt, what bills I owed right then. The rest of it is going strictly on the debt. You know, it took 7 years of doing that, working 16-hour days and 6 and sometimes 7 days a week. But I made it, got it all paid off, and it was just one of them things. People go, well, I don't know, I'd rather just go ahead and pay for it, you know, and just live my life. Well, you can do that. Lots of people would live their life for the next 30 years paying for a mortgage. I wasn't going to do that. I was not going to tie myself down to that, and I said I will not do it, and I didn't. And now Wanda and I can live a fairly comfortable life because we did not do that. And we don't have a huge house note and land notes and all that kind of stuff because I sacrificed, this is before I met Wanda, I sacrificed 7 years of my life working long, hard hours to be able to do that. And guys, sometimes, you know, we stop and we think about it. Even our nation, when I think about our country, I think about the chain of events that gets set into motion. Now, we're facing one right now in our nation with the passing of the Justice Supreme Court lady, Ms. Ginsburg. You know, with her passing, and our president is wanting to go ahead and appoint someone. Well, the powers to be that are on the opposite side are hell-bent on saying, no, you won't. If you do, there will be massive retribution on this. You know, we will change everything if we get control. We will change it from 9 to 15, and we'll put in enough liberal people that we still override what you've done. You know what I mean? Guys, it's a cat and mouse game. And when things happen, it sets into motion a chain of events that sometimes can't be undone, no matter what you do. I mean, we're sitting here now. What are we at? 22 plus trillion dollars deep in debt in this country because a chain of events was set into motion that now we can't get out of. I don't care what you do, this can't be fixed. The only thing that can fix this is a total collapse and bankruptcy and the falling of the nation and someone else taking it over and becoming under the authority of some other kingdom or, you know, it has happened throughout history, guys. Just go back and do the research, do the history studies. I mean, you know, I found a coin one time that was from the 1500s. I was a metal detecting because I used to be really big into that, and I thought, man, this coin. I was like, this thing's going to be worth a fortune because it was in really good condition, and I didn't say anything to anybody, and I was in New Orleans one day at a coin place and looking through their books, and I found that coin, and the value of it was just a few dollars. And I'm like, how can something from the 1500s be worth just a few dollars? But I got to looking, that king was the worst king that they had ever had in that country, and literal collapse had happened during his empire, and the company and the product that the coin was made out of was a very cheap metal that was just stamped, and it was just something like what we call tokens during the Great Depression. It was handed out. In other words, this was given out to everybody just to be able to purchase very few rations and stuff like this. And I was like, I was just disheartened. But at the same time, I realized that sometimes chains of events take place that you can't control. Like, for instance, if you don't have the ability to grow your own food, and all of a sudden we start facing a collapse of our economy, and we have a collapse of our food system, a breakdown in the supply chain, and all these kind of things begin to happen, and then all of a sudden we're sitting here. If you don't have a way to raise your own food, then a chain of events begin to set into motion, and there comes hunger, then there's starvation and death, and you know, there's all these things that take place. Then you have to become under the authority of someone else, and in order to be able to have food to survive. And guys, that's basically, to be honest with you, that's what we're really facing right now, because I think it's being planned, to be honest, about a collapse of the food system because of everything that's going on. But we have to stop and think about, you know, think about your own life. Think about what's happened in your life. Think about the chain of events that has taken place in your life personally. How has it affected your outcome as to who you are, your financial status, where you live, your health? You know, all these things are a product of a chain of events. We all have them in our life. There's not a single person that gets beyond this, because, I mean, I'm trying to figure the right words to use here. You know, I had a point in my life that an opportunity was offered to me, and I turned it down. You know, I said, well, I was young. I was what they call 10 foot tall, bulletproof, you know. Wasn't afraid of nothing. I was like, you know what? I ain't worried about that. You know, I said, these opportunities come around all the time. Well, guys, the bottom line is this. That opportunity only come around once in my life. And had I took that opportunity, I would more than likely be very wealthy right now. I would be worth a lot more than what I am, let's put it that way. And I just missed out on it. God laid something in my hands. He laid an opportunity in my hands, and I let it slip through my fingers. And as a result, you know, there's been some struggles in my life. I've had to bite the bullet on a lot of things, do some things I didn't want to have to do in order to survive and do the best that I could do until I got to a certain point. I made a bad decision at one point in my life. And the thing about it is, we all do this. It's not, I'm not an isolated event. We all do this at some point in our life. We make a bad decision, and that bad decision costs us. Now, some people I've talked to have a really good life, and they say, you know what, I'm going to move here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they do, and what happens to them? They get themselves into such a mess, and they end up struggling the rest of their lives. Because it sets into motion a chain of events that they have absolutely no control over. You know, and that's the one thing that that I think about more than anything. Especially after being here on YouTube, and I can usually tell by the comments that are made to us here on our channel as to the personalities of people, you know, the jealousy of some people. You know, some people is just downright rude, they're hateful, they're just, and it usually comes from a chain of events that has happened in their life that maybe they had no control over. You know, if you're married and all of a sudden someone looks at you and says, well, I don't want to be married to you anymore, you don't have any control over the other half. I mean, that's what I had to come to the realization of, and we all have to come to the realization of that, is if the other person that you're married to doesn't want to be married to you, there's nothing you can do about that. You're not going to change that. You can try, you can be anything that they want to be, but if they are not happy with you, they're never going to be happy with you. And it may be something that has nothing to do with anything with you. Maybe it's not your fault. And then it sets into motion a chain of events that literally you struggle with for the rest of your life. You feel like you can't trust anybody. You feel like, I'll never get out of this hole that I'm in. I only have one income now. I guess one of the things that I thought about more than anything else was that I was on up in age when my wife passed away. And my thing was, you know, here I am, a man of this age, and had some health issues and stuff. I was like, you know, nobody's going to want to be married to a guy like that. And I was nervous. I was scared. I hadn't dated in, I don't even know, 30. It's been a lot of years. Yeah, I didn't know. You know, I was thinking, how do I meet anybody, or would anybody even want to meet me? I mean, these are all things that go through a person's mind. And it come to a point where I said, you know, one Sunday, I was at church, and it just started getting, I looked around, and, you know, my wife had passed away, and as I began to look around, everybody had their mates sitting there with them, and I was by myself in there, and it just struck me, and I said, you know, I need to let God do this. And I went down to the altar, and I prayed, and I said, Lord, you know I'm lonely, you know I'm by myself, you know I need someone, but if you don't want me to have anybody, then, you know, you'll have to give me the ability to get beyond all this. And I said, but I'm gonna let you pick someone for me. I evidently, you know, don't know what I'm doing here. And miraculously, within just a short period of time, God brought Wanda into my life. And Wanda, unbeknown to me, that very same Sunday, Wanda had felt the same way in her life, and she was at an altar in her church praying the same exact thing I was praying, and God just put us together. Now you tell me that had to be, there's no other way, that had to be God. You know, and Wanda and I are so compatible in so many ways, and it's just been one of probably the most wonderful relationships I guess I've ever, you know, could have ever been in. And God has been good. So that's what I want to tell people. Just because a chain of events has happened in your life, and maybe something that is not of your fault, you're left alone, whether it's through the death of a spouse, maybe your spouse walked off, or whatever. You know, there is hope out there. We don't always have to stay stuck in the situation that we're in. You know, there's somebody out there. God has somebody for everybody. And if he doesn't, he will give you, the Bible plainly teaches this, he will give you the peace that you need to be able to get through it. And guys, I guess I want Porch Time today to not be discouraging. I want it to be encouraging. I want us to understand that sometimes in life we make bad decisions. I've made some. I've made a lot of them. The key is to learn from them. But some of us have things that happen to us that are not our fault. And it sets into motion these chains of events that I'm talking about. And some of us have a very hard time getting beyond those events in our life. And it's rightfully so. I mean, it's just called life. It's called living life. And it's a big time struggle sometimes to get out of a hole if we get ourselves in a hole. And then sometimes physical issues happen, like my heart issue. I mean, I didn't ask for that. It just happened. You know, and I've been to doctor after doctor after doctor trying to figure out what's wrong, and they tell me, say, Danny, you're dying from a broken heart. And for the longest, I thought that was just a myth. I was like, what, a broken heart? And they said, yeah. And after doing tons of research into it and talking to some good cardiologists, there is an actual situation called a broken heart. When you go through so much trauma with the loss of a spouse or the loss of a child, or, you know, it can be the loss of a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, you know, it's just a trauma of some sort, then a certain section of the heart actually enlarges itself because it's dealt with being broken. And it's not normal anymore. And according to the doctors, that's one of the things that happened to me. And as a result, I now have heart issues because of it. You know, sometimes I can pass out. My heart just quits beating altogether. It may start racing up to 150, 200 beats a minute uncontrollably. And, you know, and then sometimes it just completely stops, and I lose consciousness. I mean, there's those type things that happen. I have no control over the chain of events that's happened in my life. I did not ask for my wife to die and to have to go through this chain of events that I'm dealing with as a human being. It's a perfectly normal, it's perfectly natural, but I didn't ask for it. So yet I have to depend on God for the grace to be able to endure it. Now, I've tried different types of medications over the years, and I finally just quit. I told him, I said, you know what, if I live, I live. If I die, I die. You know, and I've been dealing with this since 2011, and the doctors have told me you won't die from it. You may think you are, but you're not going to die from this. And guys, there's been many times that I've had to be took to a hospital thinking I was going to die, but I did not die. And that's very hard to deal with. But that's the point I'm trying to make. Sometimes in life, we get stuck into situations and things happen to us that we have no control over. And these chains of events will dictate our life. You know, now I'm at a point where I don't drive anymore hardly because of the blacking out. My heart messing up and I lose consciousness. It's not safe, you know, to do that. So I'm limited now. I don't get up real high in the air like I used to, not for very long periods of time. If I feel something beginning to happen, I immediately try to get down as quick as I can, because I could get hurt or lose my life or anything like that. I could fall. We don't ask for these things to happen, but sometimes they just happen. And guys, that's what I want to do today. I want to encourage each and every person that hears this particular video today, this message, that don't give up. You know, there's hope. If you're caught in a situation because of a chain of events in your life, look for the way out. Look for the open door. When one door closes, look for the next open door. And that's what I did. When I got caught up in the situation, I got caught up in the chain of events and everything, you know. If you've made some bad decisions like me, I should have bought all the land that I wanted when I was younger. You know, because it was cheaper, and if the worst case scenario is that if I couldn't have paid for it, land went up so high I could have sold it and made a profit off of it. And would have still been better off. So sometimes we just make bad decisions. And now I pay the consequences of it because of, you know, things that go on around me. I can't control them. And same way with where you are at, you know, and you know, sometimes you got good realtors and sometimes you got bad realtors. And when you've got bad realtors, they just put anybody into any neighborhood. It's all about the almighty dollar. You know, and if you got good realtors, luckily the guys that had our place here was good realtors, and they tried to put good people in a neighborhood. You know, they tried to look at the income statuses and people that have, you know, like mindsets and stuff like this. As I would talk to the realtors and try to help them, you know, with people moving in I wanted to know who moved around me, so I worked with the realtors, and it worked out pretty good to do that. But guys, you know, don't beat yourself up because of chains of events that happens in your life. Some you could have done something about, like me. Some you could not do anything about, like me also. Some we regret the rest of our life. I have my regrets. I made some, I made some foolish decisions, and I regret it. Sometimes a financial situation will come into your life, and if you'd have took it, you would have been well set for the rest of your life, you know. And we make a bad decision. I've been guilty of that. You know, so guys, I guess I want porch time today. I want us to think about the chains of events that happens in our life. I want to think about the chain of events that we're going to face in the near future. Guys, 2020's been bad, okay? I don't care what anybody says, 2020 has been one of those years. It's just not been a good year. Everything that could happen has happened in 2020. Well, let's look at some of the reasons. Supposedly, solar cycle 25, the beginning of the grand solar minimum, began in April of 2020. Look at the hurricane season. We've had a really weird hurricane season. Hurricanes usually form, they move across the Gulf, bam, they come in, or they move across, they hit the Atlantic side, the Pacific side, they hit land, they go in, they dissipate, they're over. Guys, these storms now just come out here and they just sit, like Sally, just sit here. What's this one now? Beta, just sitting here. You know, doing nothing, just sitting there. No jet stream to move it because the Gulf Stream has stopped outside of North Carolina over there. It doesn't flow like it used to. So therefore the jet stream doesn't really work like it's supposed to. There's nothing to steer these things. They just get out there and they just wait for the next front to come down, and then they decide to do what they're going to do then. You know, it's all manipulated. I do believe that. I believe man's taking advantage of what they know is coming, the grand solar minimum. And you can say you don't believe in it. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. I know what I've studied. I know what I've read. I know what I see. I know what my records that I keep shows. And guys, there's a chain of events that's happening in our world, in our atmosphere, in our solar system. All these chains of events are happening, and you know, they've got one now that's an asteroid predicted to hit the Earth on, what is it, November the 3rd or something like that, or November the 1st, somewhere around like that. It's predicted to hit the Earth. Is that going to happen? I don't know. You know, I'm not a scientist, and I don't think they really know. I think that they just look at the projections of where it's at out there. I mean, they can do that, and they can see how it's traveling, but I mean, it's up to God. If it hits the Earth, it won't be the first one. It won't be the last one. You know, what will it cause this to happen or that to happen? It may set into motion a chain of events that we can't stop. You know, guys, think about these things. Think about the election that's coming up. It's going to set into motion a chain of events. Now, whether they end up being good or whether they end up being bad, I can't tell you right now. I suspect that if Trump wins, it will set into motion a chain of events that won't be good. I'm just telling you. If the Democrats win, I suspect it's going to set into motion a chain of events that's not going to be good. It's going to be bad either way we go. So, guys, hold the faith, remain strong, be of good courage, and be of good cheer, because Just because something has happened and set into motion a chain of events doesn't mean it's the end of the world. For you, for me, or for anyone else at this point in time. It just means we've got a little bit more we got to deal with, and we got to figure out how to do it. I suggest you spend some time in prayer, because that usually works wonders for me. With that being said, thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.